Growing seedlings or baby Venus flytraps can be a big challenge. I have learned the hard way and killed plants along the way by making silly mistakes. And for that reason is that I'm making this video today to prevent you from making any of those mistakes and keeping your baby Venus flytraps alive and healthy. Just like these ones right here. I have one here and 3 right here. This one on the left is actually an older one. It's about 6 months old since I divided it through rhizome division and I planted it in this pot. It has actually made a lot of progress. I'll show you the before and after picture on the screen. These 3 seedlings right here are actually coming from a video I made a few months ago about leaf pullings. These leaf pullings are about 5 months old and they started spurring maybe at 2 or 3 months old, and from then they have continued growing and developing as you can see them right now. In this video, I'll go over 6 major care considerations to account for when growing seedlings or baby Venus flytraps. We'll be covering watering, lighting, soil, feeding, dormancy, and a final one which I'm not going to introduce until the very end, and I hope you can stay until the end of the video to find out. But that last care consideration is actually often overlooked and it can be a big mistake that can end up killing your plant. Alright, let's start from the beginning with watering. Venus flytraps need a consistent water supply of pure water. Never water your Venus flytrap with tap water or bottled water. Instead, employ distilled water, reverse osmosis water, or rainwater. Older Venus flytraps might be able to survive if you use the wrong water source once or twice, but young seedlings, just like these ones, might be very affected by the minerals in tap water or bottled water. So please always use pure water sources to keep your plants alive. In terms of frequency, you must water your Venus flytrap often. I use the water tray method, as you can see right here. So I place the pot on top of a tray of water and I let it sit there until it dries out, and then I refill it. The main goal is actually very simple. You want to keep the soil always humid, always moist, but never flooded. If it's flooded, then we can have root rot issues, and for that reason you want to always keep it at a high humidity, but not at extreme humidity. You can also mist your Venus flytraps by using a manual mister or even employ a humidifier. In terms of lighting, young Venus flytraps really benefit from a strong lighting, and you can actually see a huge difference between seedlings that have been exposed to long hours of sunlight versus very short periods of sunlight. For best results, I recommend growing Venus flytraps outdoors where they can have 6 or more hours of direct sunlight. If you grow seedlings indoors, you can still do so. You just need to find a very sunny spot or use some type of artificial lighting. For these seedlings specifically, I have been growing them indoors and I have been using an LED plant light because artificial lighting is not as efficient and as powerful as sunlight for obvious reasons. I make sure to always use a timer of 12 hours, so they are exposed to 12 hours of artificial light to make sure that they are receiving enough lighting. For your soil choice, you must always use carnivorous plant soil. If you're unfamiliar with what carnivorous plant soil is, I have added a link in the description that explains how to make carnivorous plant soil and where to buy it. In this case, I've made my own. It is a mixture between peat moss and perlite. It is about 30% perlite or 20% perlite and the rest is peat moss. Both of those elements are completely pure. They don't have any type of minerals or fertilizers which can be harmful for Venus flytraps. This is of crucial importance because, like I said before, young Venus flytraps are resilient, but they can also be quite delicate to exposure to minerals. So you must make sure to use the correct soil type. I actually had a bit of a note here. I used peat moss and perlite for my seedlings right here, which is an appropriate soil type, an appropriate media for Venus flytraps. But I believe that in my next iteration, I might just use peat moss or peat moss with sand. Why? Because I noticed that the perlite is quite coarse, it's quite big. And sometimes when the Venus flytraps are starting to grow and develop, the pieces of perlite are on the way and I have to remove them so the plant can grow easily. For that reason, I think next time I might experiment with just peat moss, or maybe put peat moss with coarse sand, which should be better in this case. Now let's cover the next element, feeding. The traps in these Venus flytraps actually work. Even though they are very young and tiny, they are ready to capture bugs. I'm actually going to show you a clip right now of one of them closing due to some stimulation that I applied with a chopstick. I do not recommend you playing with the traps like I just did in that video, but I really wanted to show you that the traps do work. They are just very tiny. If you want to feed your seedlings, the best recommendation I can give you is to grow them outdoors. That way they can capture their own bugs. So there might be a small gnat or a really small fly or mosquito that they're able to capture and consume. It is also possible to manually feed your Venus flytraps, but because these ones are just so tiny, it tends to be very difficult. I will anyway share with you a link to another video that shows you how to feed baby Venus flytraps. Then you can make your own decision if you want to go through the process. But like I said, I think that it's a little bit complicated, especially when your plant is at such an early stage. If you want to encourage your plant's growth, the best thing you can do is actually provide more lighting. It will have the same effects as feeding. Before we get into the next point, I'd like to give you a quick reminder. I really appreciate if you can like this video so more people can have access to the video and learn more about Venus flytraps. Now, let's talk about dormancy. I got these plants, the one on the left was divided about 6 months ago, and these ones right here, about 2 or 3 months ago is when they actually developed some roots and the first leaves. They're still very young, and because of the time of the year, this year I skipped dormancy for all of these seedlings. Do not hesitate if you need to skip the first dormancy of your baby Venus flytraps. There are really no issues on that. Your plant won't die. The only thing you have to make sure is that next year, when winter comes, they should go dormant. But during the first dormancy, it is possible to skip it. Sometimes they just start growing out of season and they are out of sync with the other plants and with the temperature. Now, the final care considerations, which is very often overlooked, and it is the container. What containers you can actually use for these plants. When Venus flytraps are so young, they are very sensitive to any type of minerals in the ground. For that reason, you should always avoid terracotta or clay pots. Those can actually end up killing your plants. Instead, pick a safe material such as plastic, glazed ceramic, or for example, styrofoam. In this case, I've used actually very cheap or free containers I have been able to find, and they are all made of plastics, so they are completely safe. Those are all the 6 main considerations you should follow to grow healthy seedlings. If you have any other suggestions, I look forward to hear more about it in the comments. I really appreciate being able to learn more about carnivorous plants. Also, if you would like to learn how to propagate Venus flytraps, I have 2 videos that will be perfect for you. I have made a video about leaf pollen propagation and also about flower stalk propagations. I hope you can watch them. If you're interested in watching more of these type of videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay up to date with all the new videos that I'll be posting. Thank you so much for watching.